We spent 1 year making an alien biospheres game, and here are the results. Yeah, and look at this cool animated movement I've got. I put so much effort into this skit. Though it'd be really cool if you did give me the game regardless because the viewers are waiting. Hey guys, so before the video starts, I was gonna do a funny let's get to 1000 subs thing, but we kinda hit that ages ago, so right now I'm gonna thank all of you who have been supporting us by subscribing. It really helps build our legion of Tira gamers, and you know, hopefully, someday we might get to 10,000 subs, hey? But as a little something of our gratitude, here's a little Q&A section. You can probably skip to this time that I'll add post-editing, and yeah, let's get right into it. Question: will there be any public playtesting? Actually yes, we will likely open up the game to be played in an early access, so anyone who wants to experience Tira Deep in the Wild's early access version can probably pay for it and download it on Steam or any other site we likely post it to. Question: will the game be pre-extinction or post-extinction? Pre-extinction, taking place throughout episode 13 and ending on the events of episode 14, so will likely take place during the beginning of episode 13, around the interchange, which is why you saw the cryptodont in a lot of the featured footage we've shown. However, canonically in episode 13, the cryptodont does not exist anymore, but we are taking place at the beginning of it. So it goes throughout episode 13 and ends on 14 when all the creatures are starting to die. So you will likely experience those deathly, horrific, you know, death scenes basically. Question: do you have an expected release date? I've got no clue. I'm gonna be honest, with how things are going, it's kind of like making a cake that you're kind of like speculating on how big the cake is gonna be. Like, we have to make the ingredients for the cake, but right now I'm estimating we might have it done within like the next 1 to 2 years likely. If not, I'm definitely thinking we should reduce the cake, like reduce the playables, the amount of content, to kind of get it done within a reasonable range of time. Since, I'm gonna be honest, it's unlikely that it'll ever be finished if it takes, well, if it has way too much content. You know, scope creep. So, overall, I'd say probably gonna come out 2024, 2025? I'm thinking 2025 as like, it's gonna be released and finished. That's probably gonna be like done. So, yeah, that's just my estimations. Question: any plans for island creatures? Maybe a future DLC, but it's not confirmed. I'd say that likely we're gonna have a DLC based on the future Tirans, likely the ones taking place after the extinction event, as I doubt many people would really want to play as the very few creatures that do appear in the islands. I mean, it is a cool idea, but I'd say that a lot of people would want the future Tiran DLC likely than, you know, some island creatures we haven't seen in like 2.5 years. So, question: will any of the Testostomes be playable? No. Just no. They're too small to work feasibly in the game. I mean, maybe as their own separate scenario built in a custom world that's fit for them, but in the engine right now, it's just not possible. Question: will there be any Steam Deck support? Probably not, since the specs required to run this game will likely be way above the handheld's capabilities, even with a lot of optimization settings in place. I'm not even sure what the Steam Deck is. Well, it does kind of look like a mix of a Nintendo Switch and a PC, but I'm not really sure. I'm gonna be honest, likely there won't be any support for like any other platforms other than basic home PC ones like Windows, Mac, and maybe Linux. But yeah. On a quick side note, I think the estimated requirements would likely be something along the lines of specs to be able to play things like Ark, maybe the Isle, and likely Beasts of Bermuda. If you can run games like that, you can likely run the game with pretty much ease. I'm slowly but surely going to figure out a way to get specific gaming requirements, like specific PC requirements I'd say, but that'll be for another time. Question: how many flying animals will there be in the game? We've had a few ideas, but I won't confirm them just yet, but likely the Chloropterans because of how big they are, and how they probably really easily blend in to the general environment anyways, and they are big enough so that they wouldn't really cause any engine specific problems when it comes to running their physics. So yeah, Chloropterans likely. Anyways, thanks for listening. Now let's get down to business. Alright, now I'm going to tell you how this amazing journey begins. It all started back on the official Tira game Discord server. Yes, that old project from episode 8. Yeah, I know, 3 years ago. But anyways, me and Bonds had just finished a really tiny but cool Tira game that was based on the oceans, which turned out pretty decent. Only had 2 playables though, and was 2D, and was very, very bare bones. So Bonds one day thought of us starting a Tira project of our own, because well, the Tira game ain't gonna code itself. So we came up with our own Tira survival game, where you play as the creatures in alien biospheres and do creature survival stuff. The premise was very simple. However, in the depths of a cold Swedish basement miles away, someone else was building their own Tira survival game. One week into development, we hit up Leia, an amazing 3D modeler, and Burpopo, an amazing animator in the alien biospheres community. We asked if he could animate the Tirans for us. However, a stroke of good fortune occurred, and it turns out he was making the exact same game, had already spent a week or 2 developing it. It was quite impressive, and he'd made quite a bit of progress on it too, especially in such a small amount of time. The game ended up being Tira Deep in the Wild, the single player version. Of course, the version that we began with Bonnie ended up as Tira Deep in the Wild, the multiplayer version. Of course, we had one other game that we were going to create, that being Tira Monopalic Mania, a massive pixel art game where you'd capture Tyrans and shove them in your zoo for money. Unfortunately, it was a much larger task than we would ever thought, especially since it was just me and Jehoah. Who knew making a tycoon, RPG, and campaign system would be too much to handle, so unfortunately this game is dead. Don't worry though, by the time this video comes out, our new and cool Tira game ARG has come out. Look at that beautiful pixel art. Mwah, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But hey, you can find the remains of Tira Monopalic Mania in the link in the description. Rest in peace. Sadly, there were a few that left us early on. In fact, there are actually 2 members who left. Sadly, our supporting pixel artist Jehoah left before devlog 0, alongside Cross, who couldn't be too active on the project due to his personal reasons. However, that does leave the project to 5 mostly main contributors, I'd say, that being Jehoah, me, Bonnie, Leia, or Storm as most people remember them as, and last but not least, the man, the myth, the legend, Burpopo! Anyways, with the roster finally done, Popo, Bonnie and I got to work on our respective games. A lot of concept art ideas and even documents came around about this time. I even did a bit of music too. I composed the main menu for Tira Deep in the Wild, the pretty rough but somewhat okay sounding combat music, and even the death music too. I might post a few of those on the main channel sometime, but likely they're remasters, as I'm working on those currently as I'm writing the video. Alright, so for Popo, he had his hands quite busy with programming basic AI. Back then, as you can see on this poorly recorded video by Popo, wow, looks straight out of a Bandicam screen capture. At the time, the Cryptodont was the only creature coded into the game, but as time went on, he added the Camptopod and Tachydont too. He even added a bit of individual customization that allows the player to give his own Tiran special and unique traits that are individualized and are their own basically. In fact, if you do this enough, you can even make your Tirans look so different, they look like a different species. In fact, horrible abominations arose such as the buff Cryptodont. Meanwhile, Bonnie was taking a little break for a while. Yo, Bonds, where are you going? What? The multiplayer is literally in development. Meanwhile, I was struggling while working on the cancelled Tira Monopalic Mania game. I got a cool start screen and an amazing sprite font to go with it. In fact, you can see how the title screen evolved as you can see the early version, the beta version I created by myself, and then the one eventually made by Jehovah. I mean, it had some pretty good stuff as well. It had some buttons, you know, cool text boxes, and a few small concept ideas like the young billionaire and trillionaires, you know, those fellow people that would be working with you to help capture those Tirans on that, you know, giant spaceship thing. It was a really big concept basically, but sadly, game is still gone. But here's some designs on screen, so, you know, maybe you might enjoy them, who knows. Alright, unfortunately around like 3 to 4 months after the project began, our numerous other projects begun to slow down in progress, especially Tira Monopalic Mania and the multiplayer version of Tira Deep in the Wild. However, there was a ton of progress on the single player version, with the UI and the world looking great, but Popo managed to even add a great weather system alongside developing more advanced AI. Check out this video on more information on how the advanced AI works. You know, just a sneaky self-promo. Soon more Tirans were added and modeled into the game. Specifically around this time you'd find Neo brackets running around the game world. We even decided to change up how the world/game map looked from this really old small island archipelago thing to the entire continent. Not really entire continent I'd say, but more of a very small intersection that you can access. Ironically, it's actually the middle, so you can have the little biotic interchange happen within the game. So, very nice touch, I'd say. I wasn't the artist that decided that was by Popo. All the credit goes to him. Anyways, then for some odd reason, people kept on calling me a lemon sucus, so of course it spammed into memes and art, and we even added him to Tira Monopalic Mania before it was cancelled. I even made like an area theme for him that was also scrapped, alongside his battle theme. That's unfortunately lost alongside Tira Monopalic Mania. Links in the description to see the Lost Games OST and all the assets and art and kind of the basic footage from old builds that we had. Rest in peace. Around like half a year into development, we had been making quite steady progress, and with 2.5 devlogs under our belts, we were doing fairly well in keeping you guys updated. Of course, we then went almost 3 months with nearly no devlogs, and it was quiet for a little while, and then we finally updated you with the brilliant Creature Behavioral Systems devlog, our longest video at the time, though I'm gonna be honest, it's probably gonna be dwarfed by this one. Links in the description. Oh, I love shameless advertising. However, you'll probably know that in the future we have another great silence for another 2 to 4 months if you only follow us on YouTube. This was our hiatus of sorts, where we didn't really do too much online stuff like posting, except on Popo's channel. We had a few footage stuff over there that I added on our Discord server, you know, links in the description. But hey, a small replacement game for Tira Monopalic Mania came out, so I'll go over it in detail right about now. Comatosis, a pixel art styled FNAF game surrounded around the Baragod ARG, which ironically originates from the original Tira game server, from a meme that originated from the original Tira game server. Notice how that all links back. However, the game was pretty decent, hosted great pixel art, and had a story. Was it well written? That's up to you. The game offered 3 base nights and a 4th and 5th night, the 5th being a custom night where you get to customize the night for yourself. How original. It hosts a number of fun characters such as Baragod, Zarkran, the Beast, Yavra's ghostly spirit thing, all based on the Baragod Holy Book thing that was a Google document 3 years ago. Yeah, did I mention how this all started from the cult meme on the lost Tira game server? Yeah, that like the old Tira game server, the original one. Unfortunately, that invite's gone, and likely a lot of people who did check on episode 8's Google description likely just thinks that the games just never existed, or maybe just, got deleted or quit or cancelled. But yeah, there's a new one up, and if you follow us on the Tira server, then you'll see that the new one's up. Has it made as much progress as the other one? That's up to you to say. But yeah, let me just show you a little bit more on what comatosis is anyways. I'll go on a detailed rant for quite a while, so if you don't want to hear anything about that, skip to this time. I'll add it post-editing. Comatosis was made using the Godot game engine, an open source game creation software that was hellish to work with when dealing with video playback. I'll talk about that later. We began with the basic game idea, FNAF clones somewhat inspired by the original Baragod ARG, picking it up from its sad cancellation it had a few months back, and finishing the lore and rounding up to a nice polished game. The main idea of the game was a basic FNAF scenario, where you're in a massive rundown building with numerous monsters/entities trying to get to your office and kill you. Now, I'm going to explain each one in detail, how they get to your office and how you ward them off. Spoiler warning, I will basically spoil the game for you, so yeah, here's your little spoiler warning. So yeah, click off, I don't know, find the timestamp I show you on the screen. So yeah, here's your last chance. I'm about to say it. I'm gonna say it. And the first entity being Baragod, a large golden statue that walks ominously towards you. You must use the red cross against him, as if you don't, you shall surely perish. Zarkran works similarly, but takes a slightly different path towards you as he slinks around the building, eventually coming into your office, needing you to use the golden cross or yellow cross in order to ward him off. The Beast is a monster that can only be summoned by the eventual accumulation of ancient symbols on the wall behind you. You must scrub these symbols off, or you will die, and lose the game, obviously. Finally, there's the Nightfall exclusive herself, the Angel Yavra, a powerful ghostly being that slowly slinks towards you. You can stop her, however you must stare her down on the cameras, and when you do for a few seconds, she will slowly retreat to a previous position, eventually leaving the building once you've backed her up to her final point. And that summarizes all 4 entities you will face during the night. There may be a few others, but no spoilers. Just, no secrets. But, in case we had any. Oh boy, was that a lot to code though, I'm gonna be honest. Being the only developer of this game, obviously, I've got to give a lot of thanks to this video by Tech Rules, who created a video on how the FNAF AI work, how the randomized AI function basically. I didn't even know that they basically just throw dice and, pick whenever they're gonna come towards you. So it's quite funny to think that all of the original animatronics from the first 1 to 7 games just throw dices until they get to move, which is basically how they work, but I'll explain it in case you don't want to actually watch that video that goes in all detail. So, each entity has an AI level and an AI aim value, and this aim value changes every movement time for many of our threats. So I'd say around for most of them it's between 5 to 10 seconds. From there, the AI level is checked against the AI aim value, and if the AI level exceeds or equals the AI aim's number, the entity is allowed to move. This basically allows me, the dev, to customize and edit how fast the entities on average would come to the player. But of course, since it's random, you could have an incredibly low chance of having every entity move at speeds comparable to the highest possible difficulty for the entire night. Like, if you set them all to be level 1, and yet they're somehow all moving at AI levels at level 20, it's simply because of luck. Ironically, possibly someone playing the game might just be like, night 1 is so difficult, when in truth, it's actually just that they were so physically unlucky that they could practically be hit by lightning twice. But it's probably impossible. Probably. But hey, the chances of that happening anyways are smaller than the original Tira game releasing a tech demo, which is practically impossible, I'd say. Or is it? Well, turns out I had to make 420 mode much harder, as my tester beat it in, well, one go. Alongside the challenges and the custom night mode, they've all been boosted now to be a little bit harder, so that you can't just beat it in one go. Though this guy did play a UCN all the time, so I'm not surprised how he hasn't beaten it so easily. Of course, to add some difficulty as the night goes on, we have the AI level increase a little bit as the night goes on. Every hour, everyone but Yavra goes up by 1. By the third hour, everyone but the Beast and Yavra go up by 1. And then by the final hour, everyone goes up by 1. That basically summarizes all of the main mechanics in our game, but it wasn't all smooth sailings from there. There are many bugs present in the main game that I'll tell you all about. Oh, but did I tell you how horrific it was dealing with video playback? Godot does not support modern forms of video, such as MP4 files, which are commonly found like everywhere. And for some reason, Godot uses .ogv files, which I've never heard of before. Like, I won't lie, Godot is amazing, but the fact that its video play is like stuck in the early 2010s is crazy to me, and created way too many stressful situations over something that numerous other game engines can do with ease. Not to mention the false advertising of them supporting Webm, where it just doesn't, man, it just doesn't. I've been like fighting with it to take my Webm file, but it just won't play. .ogv is just the only one that works. I don't know why, I just don't know why. Now, how about we talk about the lore? Well, I shouldn't spoil too much for you anyways. However, this game does have a cool little YouTube channel that you should totally check out. And so, yeah, have some fun. And good luck for solving the lore, I guess. Well, now that we spent a cheeky little amount on the Bad God ARG game, I should probably talk about Tira Deep in the Wild. So, let's talk about how it is now compared to what it was a year ago. Tira Deep in the Wild currently hosts about 5 playable creatures: the Cryptodont, Tachydont, Neobrachid, Camptopod, and Kentrodont. The gameplay is a basic creature survival setup, however the twist is that we have advanced AI alongside a mission scenario mode where you can experience customized scenarios that immerse you into the life as the creature you're playing as. It seems that that's kind of lacking in a lot of creature survival simulators, where they don't really simulate a lot of the deeper aspects. So scenario mode will hopefully allow us to give you more fun things to do otherwise than just general survival. Now let's do a quick comparison. Here's the title screen, as you can see, pretty basic and not very impressive, but here's the title screen now. Look at that beautiful footage, it's even got animations as well that change depending on the resolution of the game. So yes, it is all literally rendered in real time, which also makes it really cool. Personally, I really like it. All massively crafted by Burpopo, so props to him, props to him. Let's show a few more comparisons too. Gameplay wise, here's a little summary of what we had a year ago. A large, empty world with not a lot of creatures in it, and only really contains Cryptodonts, as those were the only creatures cut into the game. The AI was very bare bones and there wasn't much to see there. There was only a few assets created by Burpopo and a few animations here and there. Now compare that to the massive and beautifully constructed lakes, forests, and just amazing sceneries created by Burpopo. We've got Neobrachids and Camptopods moving around, and you have the player having beautiful animations instead of those rapid cartoon running animations they previously had. Here's the world map at the beginning, and now here's the world map 1 year later. The size of the map compared to its original is just not a fair comparison. It's practically a dot in comparison. Let's be honest. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on how physically long it took to make the assets for this game. But here's the synopsis speed modeling video by Popo, sped up by a significant amount, and gives you a pretty good idea of how physically long it takes just to make one of these models. Not to mention sound effects, designs, 3D animation, and a huge ton of stuff. I could go into highly technical detail on the coding side, but we would be here all day. Well, you did want us to aim for a 1 hour video, so if you want to hear about how we made all these extra details such as sound effects, music, and likely in the future we'll also have a lot of mini devlogs talking about the game itself and the coding and it's just going to be a lot. So yeah, here's a timestamp so you can skip a ton of that unless you want to get to the very end where we have a few special things. So yeah, well, since you're sticking around, time for the sound effects made by the pixel artist Jehoah and dubbed by me, of course. For the onkyodonk sounds, I used a lateral fricative and an alveolar frill at the same time. I then made them both slower and made some small adjustments in speed and pitch. You probably don't even understand what the lateral fricative and alveolar frill even mean, so I'll introduce you to a site called Hyperchart, a site where you can find and download every sound that a human could feasibly make. The site gives you all the necessary options to produce any consonant or vowel by clicking the button, and it plays the sound in action. By mixing the sounds together and layering and pitching them and shifting them and all that kind of jazz, each tune creature sound that he's made is created, basically. And for basically using Hyperchart for purposes outside of its intended use, we've made a bunch of alien biospheres inspired sounds from it, such as the onkyodonk, sound, and all the others made by him that I'll probably play in a second. But yeah, that's sound effects for you. Now for the music, brought to you by Sarkasukas and dubbed by Sarkasukas, being me. But anyways, for music I used the software LMMS. It's a powerful software creation tool for music, mixing and editing. It supports VST, sound fonts and samples, all useful for creating music. For me, I use the free orchestral sound fonts that you can find online for a lot of the music that you may have already heard. For example, I used the Undertale sound font for a lot of the music that was going to be used for Tira monopalic mania. They can take a listen right now. I'll play those for you right now.
Now, of course, not all of them were amazing or great or good. Some were just tests that were never really finished, such as the Lemon Sucus battle theme and the unnamed one at the end. However, for the Tira Deep in the Wild OST, it was never really a major part of the experience. In fact, the smaller and more subtle sound effects play a much larger role in immersing the player into the world. This is especially the case in sandbox mode, but for anyone who does want to hear some music made by me, there are a few tracks that I'll play to you now. I guess you could skip to this time if you don't want to hear this horrid music, but here's them now. There are a few more tracks I've made, but I'll likely release any good ones onto the channel once they're done, especially the remakes, because I'm planning on remaking a ton of these, because they are not professional enough to be in the demo. Oh boy. Now onto 3D modeling, brought to you not by Burpopo, because, well, you already know this guy's a talented 3D modeler and an animator. You've already seen all of his animations in the past, and honestly, I don't know enough 3D animation in order to even explain how he does this. Of course, the 3D modeling software of choice is Blender, and in fact his animations are also made in Blender. It's a very powerful piece of software that many people just underestimate. But it's time to tell you where we are now. And, well, I guess I could just say that I'm confident the games have been going pretty well. I mean, I hope the multiplayer version goes well. I mean, it's not made a lot of progress in a while. I'm sure Bonnie will continue to work on it, but don't expect a lot for a while. It's literally been slept on the past year. You could say it's in a state of comatosis. That was a horrible joke. That was a horrible joke. Anyway, moving on. And before anyone asks, no, we can't just make Tira Deep in the Wild single player version support multiplayer. It would take recoding whole parts of the game to support something like that, due to too many things being dependent on the single player state, such as the world getting darker when entering the cave. I'd imagine every player would see pitch black the second someone goes into a cave, or worse, when one person dies, everyone dies. The whole world is basically dependent on there only being one player, which is why a lot of the optimizations exist there. So even making a completely separate world would just mean that we'd have to build an entirely new game from the ground up and make it completely separate from the main game just to support multiplayer. I mean, it was the whole reason why we had two different versions, so we wouldn't have to worry about supporting multiplayer. So, sorry guys, just not happening. Anyways, here's this section where I round up basically everything for you. A little synopsis of the game, and shameless self-promotion. Tira Deep in the Wild, a creature survival game based off the Alien Biospheres series, taking place between episode 13 and 14. The game features a dedicated sandbox mode and a mission/scenario mode to fully immerse the player within the world of Tira, which hosts a mix of documentary-esque stories to play through alongside some nice objective-based gameplay. Tira Deep in the Wild, coming to a Steam near you. Or an Epic Game Store. Or, I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next devlog.
3 whole years. 3 whole years for this.
Actually, it's been 2.5.
A couple of models, a few bits of code, but not even a playable game. What have you been doing all this time? What?